Well, welcome everybody. I am Chris. I'm one of the co-founders of Keto Chow. This is Miriam, my lovely assistant, or am I her lovely assistant?
Usually it's the opposite.
That's true. But today we are joined by Lindsey Murphy.
Hi.
She's internet famous, and we've got some super fun questions for her. So, Lindsey, how did you get started on a keto lifestyle?
Oh, gosh. I grew up a chubby kid.
Okay.
I was, but not like super heavy. And I was always very uncomfortable in my body. But it wasn't until I became a mom that I really felt uncomfortable in my body.
Okay.
I would see pictures of myself and think, ugh, I wish that I felt better about me. I also struggled with a TMJ disorder where
Okay, what's TMJ?
Of course you want me
Is
to
it
pronounce.
temporal
Mandible. It has to do with the mandibles.
Okay.
You've got two jaws, and they're connected with some cartilage, and
Okay.
I had major inflammation in here, and
Wow.
it created a lot of pain for me. We would do ultrasounds and see all of the inflammation.
You can ultrasound your face?
You can ultrasound your face.
Wow.
But you can ultrasound your eye.
I don't want that. Please no. But I didn't have enough cartilage.
Oh.
And I also use my jaw a lot because I talk a lot. And
Yeah.
that's, a thing.
I've also heard that you sing.
I do sing.
I've also heard that you randomly break into song in the middle of introducing segments on your videos.
Maybe. But you'll never know. So my jaw was always very tender, so much to the point where I would get ear infection feels. Like they wouldn't actually be ear infections, but it would feel like I had an ear infection because of all the inflammation.
Wow.
I also struggled with hardcore acne as a teen, and I didn't really understand the correlation between what you eat and how that manifests on your face.
Okay.
And for me, that was a thing. So it wasn't until my second daughter was born that I learned more about what's called Trim Healthy Mama. And that's more of a carb cycling way of life where you have protein and then you choose a carb or a fat to go along with it and you switch back and forth. And I absorbed that information and I was like, okay, cool. I started trying that way of life for like 2 weeks. And I realized I was only eating the high fat meals, none of the carb meals. If I tried to eat carb meals, I was ravenous. So I chose instead to figure out what is this eating high fat and high protein. What is that? Okay. And I figured out in reverse, that's adjacent to keto, and that's what I'm doing. So
you came at it with a
very different
Interesting.
approach.
Okay.
But I found that the inflammation in my jaw went away. I didn't struggle with singing or talking for long periods of time anymore, and I dropped a lot of weight, and I no longer had the acne. That was probably the thing that bothered me the most. I just didn't realize it. Because, you think, you can cover up acne, but at the same time.
Now, this is after you have kids.
After I had the first two.
Wow.
I hadn't yet had Lauren, my third.
Acne is supposed to be a teenager thing.
Right. I found out for me, it was dietary
Wow.
problems. Like my body just, anytime that I would have something with sugar, just high carb things. And it wasn't like I was eating healthy things. I wasn't eating raw honey or, like natural fruit or, potatoes or things of that nature. Instead, I was eating Oreos and all the processed crackers and all of the desserts, like all of the desserts. When I say all, I mean all. So I didn't know that was really a thing. You hear wives' tales. Chocolate makes you have zits as a teenager, so don't eat chocolate.
Turns out it's not the chocolate.
It's not the chocolate. The cocoa bean is not evil. It's the processed sugar. I came for weight loss, and I found a whole host of other benefits. Tremendously reduced inflammation.
Now, do you still have problems with your jaw, or?
In stressful times, yes.
Really?
Or whenever I can't control what I'm having available to eat. We travel somewhat frequently, so you can't always control what's being put into food. It was a really long time before I learned that places like IHOP put pancake batter in their eggs.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
why do they do that?
So I would eat things that were, like, I'm going to get an omelet at IHOP if we're traveling, and there's an IHOP in this airport. Cool, that's keto friendly. I can just do cheese and I can do some meat and some, peppers. No, I would break out from that and I would feel so much inflammation in my jaw from them having that pancake batter in there.
Okay, now this is a bit of a side note. I did an experiment where I did only keto chow for 100 days, and I was trying different fats. And one of the fats I noticed that I tried was grapeseed oil, which is very high in polyunsaturated fats. It's a seed oil. my plantar fasciitis came back very quickly. Have you noticed a correlation, or do you try to eliminate all seed oils? If you have seed oils, does it cause you to have problems with your jaw? Like, have you noticed any correlation with that?
I eliminated all seed oils when I went first onto like the Trim Healthy Mama thing,
Okay.
and then, fell into keto. I read all about how they were just terrible for us and how they're not really food.
No.
And so I thought, you know what? I'm just not going to do that anymore. I eliminated them all. I switched over to avocado oil and olive oil and
Fruit oils.
Yes.
I'd like to point out.
Those worked really well for me, and they were cost effective enough at the time. Coconut oil, I also had plenty of coconut oil.
Nice.
And those were cost effective enough that I was able to sustain using those and not feeling all of the inflammation in my jaw. But when we eat out, there is absolutely no guarantee about what they're using. And I do notice that my skin will break out, like small breakouts now. It's not as bad as it once was. And I will also feel a lot more tension in my jaw just from eating out. And the only true correlation I can find is the fact that they do likely use seed oils.
Interesting. Okay, did you have a support system when you started out?
I have an amazing husband. He is so great.
Yes, he
at
is.
so many things. And one of the things he is most amazing at is challenging me.
Okay.
I presented to him this Trim Healthy Mama thing
Yeah.
in January of 2016. And I said, I want to try this out. Now, a little context, because context matters. I am someone who gets excited about things right away.
All the things.
Every time. All of them. I then don't follow through on all of those things. That's a bit of a struggle for me. So when I presented this to him, I thought, oh, this really has my brain lit on fire. They're talking about things that I could actually control and not feel like I'm fully deprived. And I want to give that a try because I don't feel well in my body. I don't feel like I look good. I don't like taking pictures with my kids. So I had all these reasons for it. He said, but the thing is, if you want to figure that out, we don't have a lot of discretionary funds specifically for you to start a hobby and stop it. And I thought, oh, it hurts. Okay, I feel completely crushed, but I'm not going to show that. And so then he said, if you want to figure it out, then you can just figure it out on your own. If you really want to do this, do it without buying anything, no books, don't buy any memberships or anything like that. Just figure it out for yourself. And I was like,
Knowing Jared, he probably said it a lot nicer than that. But
you're
really?
so precious, Chris. No, it was very much so. He and I are both, we're very passionate people. And we love to argue with one another.
Okay.
It's one of our hobbies. It's so cute. But we don't do it with any malicious intent. It's more like, here's one side of the coin, here's the other side of the coin, and we both take a side and just sort of blah, 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 and then eventually we're like, I'll crack a joke and we love each other. It's fine.
Okay.
Every relationship is special.
So the edict was it had to not cut into the food budget. And
that's right. Yeah, it was. Wow. This can't really cost us any extra money because there's no monies for you to dabble in something, buy a whole bunch of stuff and things, and then abandon it because you got the dopamine hit of getting all of the things.
Right, right.
So the support system at the beginning, not so great.
It was more like a direct challenge.
Ooh.
More of
Are you asking for a challenge?
Exactly. So I sharpened my sword and I got in the kitchen. But there was also a facet of the challenge. Don't make it weird for the rest of us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, they didn't, at the time we had 2 daughters and him, and he thought, I don't want to be on some sort of, weird food experiment, infiltrate my life in a negative way.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he also hadn't done any of the research, and I like to bring people into conversations midway.
I also do that.
It's a very common ailment, I find.
Hold on. Assume I don't know what you're talking about. What are you talking about?
I hear that a lot at my house.
If Jared did that to me, I feel like I might actually respond super well to that.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I can't
Jared,
guarantee
remember
it.
that.
So I just put my head down and was like, I'm doing this. He thinks I can't do this? Watch me. Missouri's the show me state.
Yeah.
I'm a Texan, so it's more like a hold this, and I'm going to go show you what's up. So I didn't have the strong support system. However, because I went first in my family, I was able to pave that way for him. And there was just me living it out without making it weird for them meant that he could see changes in me without me, I don't know, evangelizing him to keto.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And he would ask questions after, I don't know, maybe it was 8 weeks, maybe 10 weeks. He was like, well, wait a minute. Why are you not eating the potatoes you cooked? But I have to.
You don't have to.
He was noticing the changes and the differences. And so because I went first, it paved the way for him to join in as well. And so eventually he became very supportive.
Now, with your kids and family, because you have quite the plethora of offspring, do they do a ketogenic diet? Do you cook multiple meals, or is it just like, hey, I made this and you guys can eat it? Or how does that go?
Okay, my children are not living a keto lifestyle. They're all 13 and under. So at this stage of the game, eliminating carbs for their bodies may or may not be ideal. But I will produce food that is completely friendly to me and my husband because we are both in the ketosis realm. So I will make food that is friendly to me and Jared, and then I will offer an additional side that is
okay.
Maybe if they want potatoes or sweet potatoes or something that's carbier. Sometimes it's rice, sometimes it's a pasta. It's not completely eliminated from their lives. And my objective in doing that is allowing them the opportunity to see the differences and understand that source is not good for mom and dad. And it tastes real good. And so I'm going to eat it right now, but I have the choice to not eat it because mom and dad also have the choice to not eat it.
Okay.
And it's one of those things where it's like I explain to them, this is what food is, this is what it does for your body, and now we're practicing the art of choosing. And I'd rather them practice that in my home and then get out into the real world and say, okay, I do know what these things are. Mm-hmm. So if I make the decision, it's a willful choice, not an ignorant stumbling into that decision. Because I didn't find keto till 2016, it was like I spent all of these years just feeding my kids
Macaroni and
pure garbage, like pure garbage. All of the vegetable oils. Let's make some Duncan Hines brownies with some canola oil. Let's do that.
Yeah,
and
soybean oil.
Let's just go ahead and eat like half the pan. We finished half the pan. We might as well just go ahead and clear it out.
I mean, you don't want to have to put it in the fridge.
Well, we don't want to have to use up plastic wrap or something
yeah.
and cover it. It's just easier. And so for me, I felt like I failed my children for a really long time because I didn't understand it myself. Mm-hmm. And then I also realized I didn't understand it myself. I'm going to say, okay, that's a marker. We can move forward now.
Now, when you're doing keto, I'm assuming that you end up with some kind of favorites that you like to make for your family that you just keep coming back to over and over again. Yes. What are some of your favorite things to make for yourself and for your family? And
Okay, I had a lot of recipes before I went the keto route, and I loved to cook. I'm not amazing at it, but I do love it. And sloppy joes were always one of our favorites. Loved making it, and I would make it from scratch. I like to figure out how to make things from scratch. If I don't have to rely on a specific ingredient in the pantry, I'm very happy. If I can find a way to make it myself, I want to do that instead because I don't want to have to say, oh, I didn't pick up this one can of something in order to make this meal complete. I have to go to the store. I don't know if anybody else out there is like this, but I hate going to the store. If I can avoid it at all costs, I will do it. Yes, so sloppy joes. I was already making sloppy joes from scratch, but they're a sweeter, loose meat situation. Yeah. So there was brown sugar in it and some other ingredients like regular ketchup and things like that to give it that manwich-ish kind of a flavor.
There's a lot of sugar in there.
So I just took my recipe that I had already had for years and converted it to a keto-friendly recipe. And there was no significant difference. Like the kids couldn't figure it out. Yeah. Jared didn't really notice any difference, and we all love it. So it worked out beautifully.
Now, I need that recipe.
Yeah,
It's on my website.
Are you we like to make taco guts. It's all the stuff that's in tacos, but it's just like in a bowl or something like that. For some reason in my mind, when you're talking about sloppy joes, I'm envisioning a bowl of sloppy joe meat and you're just eating it with a spoon.
That sounds delicious. Mm-hmm. Also, we love fried cabbage So
Okay.
I will shred up cabbage super fine and
Okay.
then saute it in a skillet until it's kind of brown.
With
and
butter?
Oh, all the butter. All the butter, all the salt. And then I will pull that out and it will act as pasta for us to make a sloppy
The sloppy Joe.
So it's kind of like spaghetti, but sloppy Joe style.
Okay.
I also have some different rolls that I make, like cheese rolls or something like that go really well with it, because I feel like sloppy joes go pretty nicely with some cheese on top. And so it's like if you get the cheese in the bun, you're already halfway there. So we'll do it that way, open face style, using the egg breads that are, all over the
All the
YouTube.
things, yes.
All over it. We'll use those as open face sandwiches, that kind of
Okay.
stuff. So sloppy joes are a fantastic staple in our household.
Okay. Now, at what point when you were making all these recipes and you started your keto journey, when did you decide that the world needed Lindsey on YouTube? Like, how did that start?
So it started with my husband having I had lots of words to say about it.
Okay.
And he had the capacity to hear this many words.
Okay.
So I had all of these words to say, and so I needed some place to say them. And before I had been into the keto world, I wanted to go the natural crunchy mom kind of route whenever we were pregnant with number one. And so I was looking up, what's in somebody's like cloth diaper bag?
Yeah.
Because I cloth diapered and did all the things. But so I was into the YouTubes from way back when. I was there, and then I thought, oh wow, I have these tiny humans and we move a lot, and I really feel like I need to homeschool the tiny humans. And so I integrated into the homeschooling space and was like, oh, okay. And I was not making videos at this point. However, my very first video on my channel is me sharing what I was using for my first grader in 2016 to share with the community. At the time, YouTube had just taken away the ability to do a video response to other video creators.
Yeah.
And so I was lamenting that and connecting with homeschool moms, sharing them like, oh, you're doing the same thing as me. I wanted to share that back because I also feel this strong need to create, like to share, to just talk. And it's not because I just like the sound of my voice, even though I will say that. I have a lot of words. I like to consume content where people have lots of words, so I would like to participate in the conversation.
This is a creative outlet for you. This is a way to connect with other people, but this isn't what drives you with a lot of things, growing a channel.
That's very true. My first priority is my family and my home.
Okay.
And I also need a creative outlet, a hobby. And this hobby just happens to suit my personality a little bit. And also I can still do things like create food for my family, so I'm still able to engage in my primary responsibilities without it also feeling like I'm never getting to participate in my own hobby. So it's kind of a blend.
Now, you've been doing keto for quite a while, but you just kind of recently, like within the last year, started using Keto Chow. Why were you toying with our emotions like that?
I thought you needed some drama in your life.
Well, it's funny. I actually started getting recommended your videos. Like YouTube decided I should start watching Lindsey Murphy. And I'm like,
YouTube is so
okay.
sweet.
Well, I think it's because you were starting to do stuff with Neely, and we had
Sure.
just started sending Keto Chow to Neely.
Yeah.
And for some reason, YouTube said, check out her stuff. And so I started watching your stuff. And I don't know if it was that you mentioned Keto Chow, but there was a video where I started commenting. I'm like, hi, by the way, this is Chris from Keto Chow. We can totally send you some stuff. You had gone a long time doing a ketogenic diet, a ketogenic lifestyle, making videos, and hadn't ever used Keto Chow. Had you heard of Keto Chow before and just wasn't really on your radar,
it was
or what?
very much so in the periphery for me.
Okay.
It was not a front and center thing for me. I knew that other creators used it,
Okay.
but I had spent so many years just creating my own thing that it was not like, oh yeah, okay, cool, it's out there. But also, like, I do my own thing. Like I said, I like to have all the ingredients to make a thing.
Yep.
I don't like to have the pre-prepared thing. But as I get a little older, I'm finding value in having something that is like 17 steps less than what I would do for myself.
Okay.
And, life gets busier. as you move on. And having something like Keto Chow has definitely simplified the process for me. But it was just one of those things where I was like, you don't know what you don't know
Okay.
until you get shown,
Yeah.
right? It's like you don't know that you could actually fold a shirt differently unless someone shows you. You could fold a shirt differently.
I still don't know how to fold fitted sheets.
That's okay.
I just
That's
light
okay.
them on fire.
But it just was not on my radar to simplify my life. And I will say this as a piece of context, I don't tend to simplify my life on purpose.
Oh.
I don't see the simplification value.
Oh, okay.
It's like I don't see it until somebody else is like, oh, you could do that so much more easily. Right. Yep. You don't have to build the clock to tell what time it is.
Okay.
I'm trying to learn that every day.
Now, I've noticed when watching your recipe videos, you'll make a recipe the way that they tell you to once, or maybe half of the time.
I'll consider it.
But then you will make it your own. And I
100%.
think a lot of people really enjoy watching that on your videos, how you're making stuff your own. Can you talk to us about that? Like, why do you do that?
Right. So I tend to have a rebellious spirit, and I find recipes to be very, very specific. And this sounds terrible. I think I know more.
Look, I know better than these people that made this recipe.
Right. I feel like sometimes, like recipe creators, I have so much respect for them because it is hard work to create a recipe. And
Yeah.
I found that in my own life. I tend to cook a lot more like a grandmother who doesn't have recipes in her kitchen where she just kind of like, oh, some of this and some of that. And so I'll look at a recipe and I'll think, I understand how that ingredient works. I want to change it out for something that I think works better for me.
Okay.
Namely, specific example being almond flour. Almond
Okay.
flour is a fantastic low carb option, but you can get a little too far, a little too liberal with the almond flour.
Have you ever eaten that many almonds?
I'm not going to say that I haven't, just because I don't know.
I mean, like when it calls for like a cup of almond flour, it's
Right.
like that's a lot of almonds. Like,
That is a very generous serving.
yeah,
So I kind of came up with a baking blend, that's what I call it, or a low-carb flour substitute. And it's got a variety of different ingredients in it. And I think to myself, I know that works really beautifully for me.
yeah.
And it substitutes flours and almond flours very nicely, and it reduces the number of almonds that I'm having to eat. Sometimes you can get onto a different way of life and you find like all of these benefits, but then you learn maybe that specific keto-friendly ingredient isn't quite good for me.
Yeah.
And so you kind of modify to suit your own needs. And so that's generally what I do. Also, I always add way more vanilla and garlic because you measure those with your heart. Not with a spoon.
Yeah. We're like garlic. Did it say a teaspoon? 2 tablespoons.
I don't think I've ever measured garlic with with a actual measuring spoon. I just get a spoon and we have the crushed garlic that's like minced garlic.
Yeah,
and
you just dip it out and you're like, all right.
throw it at the
If I
taco
can't
meat.
taste it, there's probably not enough.
Have you ever found yourself using Keto Chow similarly or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%. So my favorite flavors are blueberry pie
Okay.
and chocolate core with stevia.
Yeah.
Blueberry pie, so good.
Well, and I think that was one of the first flavors because we had just introduced blueberry pie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and we sent that to you, and I'm curious to see if we can ever unseat that as your favorite flavor. But
Y'all are welcome to try. Do your best.
okay.
So blueberry pie, I loved blueberry muffins growing up.
Okay.
Loved them. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a blueberry muffin recipe. So I add that in and I substituted out some of my baking blend. So I kind of made a little swapsy, but not completely because it still needed some more structure. And I
Okay.
didn't want to use, like 8 servings of Keto Chow in one muffin recipe. I
Well,
felt like
would
that
be very
might be
salty.
a little aggressive. So I, substituted out some of my baking blend with the blueberry pie and created muffins. And I did the same thing with banana. I love adding Keto Chow to waffles. That is a fantastic way for us to eat it. And obviously, it's not baking, but Keto Chow as a creamy ice cream.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say waffles is totally baking. But
that's definitely one that we do. I have tried some other things where I tried to make Keto Chow blueberry pie as a porridge on the stove.
okay.
And I'm still workshopping it. It's multiple steps away from what it should be.
Okay.
But it is still being regularly revisited.
What's your typical menu in a day?
I actually like to keep it really simple just because my brain is doing 8,000 other things at a time. So it's often eggs with bacon or cabbage. Cabbage, eggs, and bacon are some of the staples in our family, honestly. Usually for lunch, I will pull leftovers from the fridge and just try to either reimagine them or just heat them up as they were because they were just amazing to begin with. Like those sloppy joes, or if we had tacos the night before, or if there was fajitas. Oh, fajitas left over are top notch. I will do that, but I will also fall into a little bit of a habit of doing a snacky lunch where I eat pecans, pepper jack cheese, and pepperonis.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with eating pepperonis,
They're fantastic.
right?
They're so good. And so I will wind up like doing a little fly by the kitchen and collecting just some snacky plate things and eating that. Or if I have had the foresight to make a bunch of my keto tortilla replacements and they're in the fridge, I will make some sort of a wrap with some roast beef and some, provolone and something else. Or ham and cheese. Ham and cheese is always a winner. But typically it's something less heavy for lunch just because I'm still managing the children and the household and everything. And then for dinners, it's always a family sit-down meal as best as we can accomplish. And very rarely it'll be steak. More often than not, it'll be ground beef.
Hey, nothing wrong with ground
It's
beef.
one of those things where you're like, I love you, steak, but I need to keep you in your place. Otherwise, we will go off the rails on the food budget.
Yeah. Nice. So we have a question from Carrie. Says that basically I've never been able to adjust to almond flour.
Oh.
I miss baked goods and will sometimes experiment with recipes, but trying to make cake or brownies or bread or pizza crust with almond flour just tastes wrong to me. Any suggestions?
That is a really, really good question. I feel that because the almond flour gets so heavy or it's just not the right texture. I have found that just combining a bunch of different ingredients that are keto-friendly baking ingredients, like oat fiber is one that works well for me. Oat fiber is great. It's very light, very, very fine, and it allows a more fine texture while also giving the bulk that flour provides in a regular, standard kind of food recipe. So I do a lot of that. Now, if you can tolerate coconut flour and it doesn't have too strong a taste for you, that's really helpful to blend with the oat fiber because it absorbs lots of moisture. Mm-hmm. The almond meal, it does help a little bit with some texture. So I do have a little bit of that in there, even though I'm trying to eliminate the almond flour and use some other options, working on that. And then I find that adding just some other ingredients that absorb liquid. I've got a little bit of flax meal in there, which, some people can be a little bit not okay with. And then glucomannan powder is one that I use a lot. So it's adjacent, or it's in the same family as acacia fiber.
Yeah.
And it helps with the binding of things, kind of acts like a substitute for gluten. So I find that mixing together a bunch of different ingredients in some specific portions, like proportions, really helps a lot of the goods that I bake come out a little bit better. They're never going to be exactly like white flour. And that is one thing that took me a minute to get over. It took my husband a lot longer to get over it. But for me, it took me a little bit. And it's a retraining of your brain and your taste buds and your stomach too.
So your baking blend recipe, is that on your website?
It is on my website, and I've also got some videos on my YouTube channel where I've shown how to make it. But the printable recipe, you can just print it out and just whip it up, and definitely look for the updated versions as I'm getting time to do those.
And do you normally keep the website most up to date, or is it just mostly on YouTube videos and then you backdate to the website when you have time, things like that?
Yes. Okay. So my objective is to have the videos out because I love to watch videos. So that's my primary goal. And then have the printed recipes out on the website when I release the video. I did some cereal that was super quick cereal with the fruity cereal flavor. And
nice, Keto Chow.
I very intentionally was like, I need to schedule everything to go live at the same time. That way everything is all together. And if you wanted to find a printable recipe instead of just listen to me, sort of talk it through, then you would have access to that.
Because different people have different ways that they like to work with things. And some people are like, just give me the printed recipe.
That's right.
And other people, they want to have that video going, I'm with a friend and
Exactly.
we're
Body
cooking
doubling.
together. Yeah,
That's right.
A few months ago, we introduced our salty electrolytes. Salty. Yeah, there we go.
Love it.
What do you think about it?
I actually really love it.
Okay.
I have tried the Relight. I have tried the Perfect Keto electrolytes. I've tried the Element. I've tried the Salty. I've tried the Ultima,
Okay.
the off
Yeah.
the store shelf ones. I've tried them all, and I really like the flavors that y'all have come out with. And y'all's Coco Loco is hands down my favorite.
You've
good.
used that quite a bit in your videos. How do you
Yes.
like to mix that up?
I love it as hot chocolate. It is literally the best hot chocolate out of,
Okay.
and that's something that we have often done. My husband and I will sit down for the evening and we'll have a chocolatey electrolyte or sometimes decaf coffee. But hot chocolate electrolytes is just one of those comforting things that helps us unwind for the night. And it's interesting because you think of electrolytes, they kind of help you to have more energy and, they kind of replenish you and revive you. And I find that I sleep really awesome after I've had some hot chocolate
Really?
with the Coco Loco.
Nice.
And are you just mixing it up with hot water? Are you adding anything else into there? Or?
If I'm just going super simple, just hot water.
Okay.
And it's probably about 12 ounces or so. I know that it's intended for, a slightly larger
As
volume.
much as you want.
Yeah. But 12 ounces of water is my perfect number. And then sometimes I'll add a treat of a little splash of cream.
Okay.
And typically on my videos, I will show those. That'll be a night that I choose to add a little splash of cream just because I think it makes it more fun.
Yeah.
But I don't find that it's necessary to use the cream in order to make it feel like a hot chocolate. So it's really just more for fun.
Well, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that you want to just really beat your drum about? And
Absolutely. First of all, I'm so glad that I got to sit down and have this with y'all because I just adore y'all.
it's mostly Miriam.
100%. It's actually 99.37%, but
Yeah.
it's close enough for
I'll take
rounding. I think that when it comes to living a keto lifestyle, it doesn't look one way. It looks how it looks in different seasons. And even for me, like I could say, I'm going to do ketovore, where I focus on, 10 carbs or less per day.
Okay.
Or I could go and just be like, you know what? I'm just living just a low carb lifestyle. You can just do anything you really want to do once you kind of narrow in on what feels right for your body. But it's not always going to be like that. Don't expect what works today to always work in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. Be willing to adjust and change. I had to be willing to change in the beginning to going from that trim healthy mama lifestyle over to a keto thing. I mean, I didn't have to try very hard, but it was one of those things where you say, oh yeah, the carbs are not great for me right now. I'm good with that. Or when I was pregnant during that, I had to eat carbs because I couldn't survive otherwise. Like I had some issues with not being able to eat if it wasn't some sort of a carb. And so that was my experience. That doesn't mean it's anybody else's. But also the person that I was in that year is not the person that I am this year.
Yeah.
And the subsequent years. So being willing to say, I know these to be true about me right now, and I'm going to hold on to those until I know that they're no longer true, and I'm going to be willing to adjust and pivot if necessary.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for joining us. And go ahead and leave in the comments if you have any questions for Lindsey. She'll probably pop in and answer them. And everybody have a great day.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.